So, Metroid Prime Federation Force for the Nintendo 3DS. You know what? I'm astonished. No, really, I am. I thought since it has been 5 years since we got a Metroid game, we would get a mainline installment to the Metroid series. Apparently, we were mistaken. But you want to know what really caught my attention? The fact that the title of the game has Metroid Prime in it. I thought the Prime series was over since Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. In all honesty, when watching Nintendo's digital event, I grew curious to say the least. Metroid Prime Federation Force focuses on a squad of Federation Marines. These troopers are sent in missions to venture in uncharted territory, and of course fight space pirates. Granted, this is a neat topic. It does expand the Metroid universe in areas that doesn't involve Samus. So what led to this title's creation? Well, this project does appear to take after Metroid Prime Hunters, and in a recent interview with Metroid Prime producer Kensuke Tanabe, explained that there was a multiplayer Metroid game in development for the DSi, but due to hardware limitations the project was scrapped. Now in 2015, it seems the project has resurfaced in the form of Federation Force. The game focuses on the Prime style of Metroid, in which the player assumes a first-person's perspective. Federation Force focuses on 4 co-op action traversing the Metroid universe. In the gameplay footage we have seen, levels include A2 Lost World, which is the ice world, C3 Island, which seems to be some kind of a pirate stronghold, and some kind of a volcanic level. From the treehouse footage, before you start each mission, each player can choose a set number of items to use. For example, the repair capsule that heals players, a shield generator that creates a protective barrier, proximity bomb, which is a sticky bomb that's triggered by nearby enemies, a slow beam that slows down the target, decoy, which creates a distraction for enemies, and of course missiles and super missiles. Looking at the gameplay, in the top screen you have the standard first-person layout, and in the bottom screen you can see your items along with the map. Now this may be judging too quickly, but the maps do seem a bit bare bones in the fact that it does seem the map of the game is already given to you, unlike in past Metroid games where you have to explore in order to figure out the map. In all honesty, looking at the treehouse footage, the game does look fun. In the ice world you lure in and trap beasts, and in the pirate stronghold you have to take down missiles. But is this game really a Metroid game? Well, from first impressions, that doesn't really seem to be the case, but I do want to see what more this game has to offer. In regards to Blast Ball, well, it does look fun and I want to try it out. The game was first shown at the Nintendo World Championships. One thing I want to point out is the background of the arena. You can't see this acronym GFS on the wall. In the Metroid universe, this stands for Galactic Federation Ship. For example, the GFS Olympus. So there was a Metroid connection to begin with. Will Metroid Prime Federation Force be a fun game? I'm betting it will. The main reason why the game is garnering so much negative backlash is because we haven't seen a new Metroid game for 5 years. And from that 5 years, people were naturally expecting a mainline installment of the series, not a spin-off. If Federation Force came out as a launch title for the Nintendo 3DS back in 2011, which is only about a year after Other M came out, I doubt it would have received as much backlash. We have seen Metroid spin-offs in the past like Pinball and Prime Hunters, but Pinball was released a year after Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and Prime Hunters came out a couple months after Pinball, and it led the way to Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. In other words, these spin-off games came out pretty close to mainline iterations of Metroid. Metroid Prime Federation Force, on the other hand, is a spin-off that was revealed at a Metroid Drought. The game does look fun and I'll be sure to pick it up, but I am wondering if Nintendo is planning to develop a mainline Metroid. But enough of my own dispositions. In order to discuss this game more eloquently, we got Commonwealth Realm, Nintendo Box, and Ragnaroks for a discussion. For the next 20 minutes, the guys and I discuss this heated topic. Now, why do you think Federation Force is receiving so much backlash?
I personally believe that the biggest problem with Federation Force is that Metroid's fan base has gotten something that was extremely far from what they expected. A lot of people, me included actually, had hoped for quite some time that the new major Metroid would be released on Wii U. It was nothing official, but with those expectations it felt like a huge slap in the face for a lot of people, because it felt like expecting a glass of mayonnaise, but you get a mayonnaise labeled glass with vanilla pudding inside, you know? I'm pretty sure that the game itself isn't a bad game, but it's simply not at all a Metroid game. Cute look and the tiny-legged Master Chief characters and the focus on co-op action, that's all not what the Metroid brand stands for, which is like isolation, eeriness, exploration, loneliness, stuff like that. And I personally can't believe that Nintendo didn't anticipate this backlash, because even if Nintendo didn't actively create the rumors and the anticipation for the new Metroid release, they should have been aware of the moods and the currents in the community, you know? But with this trailer, they showed that they either had no idea or that they just didn't care and thought that people will simply love anything they give them, which was obviously not the case. I personally was expecting a Metroid for Wii U. Now it seems like with what Kensuke Tanabe Tanabe said that the next major Metroid release is probably coming for the Nintendo NX. At least it sounds like that.
Yeah, I'm very much mixed on it because I was very sour on it at first. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone was. They were just a bit like, oh, what is this? But I think that it could actually be a fun game. It doesn't look like a bad game. The problem is, it doesn't look like a Metroid game. You have this, which you can directly compare to a game like Splatoon, which they decided to make a new IP, and it worked out so well for them. So you just kind of come up with a thought in your head of why didn't they do that with this? Of course it wouldn't be as popular as Splatoon because it's not as fun or colourful or joyful as Splatoon would be. It just seems to make no sense why they've put this Metroid logo on it and, you know, the Metroid name on it, especially the Metroid Prime name on it, to try and sell some units, I would imagine. But it doesn't seem like it's going to actually work. It seems like it might actually backfire, if anything. So on the whole, I think it looks like a lot of fun, but I don't think that it's going to sell that well, and I don't think it's a Metroid game. And generally, I think that Nintendo's problem this year was that they brought out too many spin-offs when we were expecting mainline games, and that's hurt this as well because it's been one of the big culprits of that.
The thing about Metroid, Federation Force, it's a dumbed-down Metroid game. It's a Metroid where you take out the exploration, take out the upgrade elements, where you have to search through the entire world. Let's just stop there for a moment, since I believe we have to this point just seen the multiplayer element of this game. There's also said to be a campaign, and where they even are talking about that Samus Aran could appear. I think that the single-player experience of this game could be rather different, or even drastically different than what we have seen of the multiplayer, if there is, of course, a single-player campaign in this game. So that's the question. It will fit to the Metroid universe, and especially the Metroid Prime universe, depending on its single-player campaign, and we have basically received close to none information about that part of the game.
Since the advent of Federation Force and the return of the Prime series, Metroid Prime producer Kensuke Tanabe in an interview did state his desire to continue the story of Metroid Prime 3 dealing with Silex. But looking at Federation Force, where do you guys think the Metroid series is heading at?
So I think it's really nice that they're actually doing a side story. It gives a bit of more scope to the Metroid universe. I just think that they've done it wrong in that there's no mainline Metroid game to go along with it, because if they would have brought out Metroid Wii U alongside this, everyone would have been happy, and it would have probably sold more as well. I generally think that we are going to see a Metroid Wii U, and I think this is a bit of waste of Next Level's resources, but I don't think that they'll have a huge team on it. They've got like just under 100 staff. So I think that most of their staff will be working on an NX game or a Wii U game, probably NX, and I think that we will definitely see that continuation of the Prime series on the NX, or definitely a retro-made Metroid.
I think the biggest problem with all this is just the art direction of the game, because I think if they would have turned Federation Force into something that just felt more Metroid, even if it had the same mechanics, but if it just felt more like visually and aesthetically like a Metroid game, I think nobody would have been disappointed. It's just a huge letdown. I've read on Twitter from Nintendo CEO that they are reacting to the fans' reaction and that they are considering. So I think this huge backlash will definitely change some things that may have been planned in the future at this point, but they probably are gonna reconsider a lot of the decisions, because I think this is one of the most negative reactions on anything Nintendo has ever released. We talked about Splatoon, which was received very positively. To be fair, when they released the first footage on E3 2014, I think, or they even let people play the game, I think. It wasn't all positive at that point, but quote-unquote negative reactions were mostly a lot of confused questions by fans, which could be resolved in the future. I really don't expect that to happen for Federation Force, because it looks very sinister at this point in terms of fan reception.
Basically, I would also like to point out that this could be a holdover title for the next Metroids coming out, since it's been 5 years now since Other M was released in 2010. According to Metroid Prime series producer Kensuke Tsunabe, he said in an interview that if we started working for a Metroid title for Wii U now, it would likely take 3 years or so, just like the other Prime games. I think we could take one thing positive, and that is that we will probably see a continuation of the Metroid Prime series in terms of a 3D Metroid, and in terms of a 2D Metroid, we could see a continuation of the series after the Metroid Fusion, since we know that Mr. Sakamoto, the creator of the Metroid series, is working on a new 2D Metroid game, which could be, let's say, a resurrection of the cancelled Metroid Dread project. So we'll just have to see. Sakamoto was also in charge for the Metroid Other M, and we know how he impacted the story and character development in that game, so I have mixed opinions in terms of Sakamoto developing a new Metroid.
As we all know, there were rumors of a Metroid Wii U game in development by Retro Studios, but with the recent information that may not be the case, since Retro did give a Twitter statement saying, "Can you dig it?" What do you think Retro is working on?
Shovel Knight NX. So I think that we'll probably be seeing a Metroid from them, and then something else. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I really hope that they're working on a new IP. Yeah, I would like to see what they could maybe do with an RPG. Nintendo only really have Monolith Soft who make fully blown RPG. So I would like to see what a Western RPG from a Nintendo studio would be like.
Personally, I would love to see a Metroid console game in a type of world just like the No Man's Sky. In that game, you basically are traveling in a spaceship and going to different planets, and it looks like in this game you'll also be able to actually do combat. So for me, I think that both Retro, but also the other experts at Nintendo should just think about how Metroid could work for the NX. Make the game more accessible for others, and an online component will be great. And I would say that Metroid Prime Federation Force has one important task, and that is testing how online feature could work for a Metroid game in the future.
From the interview with Kensuke Tanabe, it is likely that we won't see a console Metroid game until the NX comes out. Now, where is the Metroid series going to go in terms of gameplay and story? Will it stay in the Prime style or the 2D style?
I don't see why you can't do both. They did have a period in time when Metroid kind of had its golden years, where you had the Prime games on home systems, and then you had the 2D games on handhelds, and I think that's definitely something that you could go for. We don't know what the NX is, obviously, at this point, so it's hard to predict what Metroid could be and how it could take advantage of the hardware, but if it is that fusion system, then maybe we could see both, but it's less likely, I would think, and I would like to see it go both ways. I like the idea of both of them, and I think that they work well together, so I don't see why we couldn't have both. I know it's a lot to expect from Metroid.
As you said, we don't know what the NX is going to be like. Personally, it has to be a stronger console, like hardware-wise, because when you look at what happened at this year's E3, it was one of the most bombastic E3s I've ever seen, to be honest. Like, there were so many huge and massive announcements and so many wow moments, and to be honest, Nintendo, they seem to stand a bit in the shadow of all these huge, impressive games that were shown on E3. Final Fantasy VII gets a remake, Last Guardian is still alive and looks awesome, and most of the things we've seen were really, really exciting in terms of technical advancement. And yeah, Nintendo didn't really show much in these regards.
And I think that the NX should basically be a showcase of what Nintendo has to offer. And Metroid should be the benchmark, since Metroid Prime pushed the GameCube to its limits, and that's what I want a future Metroid to do. Push the NX to its limits, just create the best possible Metroid they can. And I think that the only way to do that is through an open world 3D Metroid, possibly first person game, just like a type of No Man's Sky, where you actually are able to fly the spaceship that Samus Aran is flying around from planet to planet.
I mean, I think that they've got a huge opportunity with the NX, and we gotta still highlight that. But I believe that working on the NX and maybe releasing it in the next 2 or 3 years is a huge opportunity for Nintendo, because they will release a major console in between cycles of their competitors. Like when PS4 and Xbox One, they will probably be around for at least 6 years now. And Nintendo could go ahead and release a console that is far ahead of both of them and have the one console that is technically superior to everybody else, which is normally not Nintendo's approach, but that would be a huge selling point. And especially when we talk about Metroid, this could be one of those selling titles where they announce it maybe as a release game for the new NX, which shows the real capabilities of that new console, which could be lined up with what the PC can do at the moment.
Yeah, but one thing we shouldn't forget about Metroid is that it has always been a part of this curse, the Metroid curse, that has been in place since, let's say, Super Metroid, when it came at the same time as Donkey Kong Country, which was also a groundbreaking title with 3D type effects and so on. And then you had the Metroid Prime series, which was bound by the Halo curse, where it came out basically either a few months before the next Halo installment, or came out at the same week or even day. That was the case with Metroid Prime 2 Echoes and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. While Metroid has not had any type of online gameplay apart from the Metroid Prime Hunters game and now Metroid Prime Federation Force. So I think that the next Metroid must have an online component.
It's interesting that you mentioned the Metroid curse. It even started with Metroid on the NES. There was a title that was released for the C64 and the Amstrad CPC in the same month as Metroid. It was called The Sacred Armor of Antiria. From a game design perspective, pretty much a very, very similar game, which seemed like one of the companies had spied on the other one. They were both released at the same time. It was a completely new concept, and both companies didn't know about the other, but Metroid seems to have a curse in that regards.
Yeah, I think that as far as online goes, it's something they definitely need to implement, but I think that it's a problem with Nintendo more widely than just the Metroid franchise. I think it's them, you know, the way that they go about things, their hesitance into going into online. And we're seeing a change in that, but it does still, to a certain extent, seem like Nintendo has its head in the sand with things like voice chat and stuff like that. And didn't they always be really hesitant when they were making Metroid Prime? They didn't want to call it a first-person shooter, they called it a first-person action game or something like that. You need to face the fact that if you have an online feature in your game, it's more popular. People like online, people really love online, and that's why Halo is so popular.
When they announced the Prime series, people were complaining, just like they do now with Metroid Prime Federation Force, that Metroid is becoming a first-person shooter. The biggest mistake that they did with the Prime series was not to embrace online, and then especially embracing voice chat, which Nintendo is still struggling to do with this day.
Now, just to give final remarks on Federation Force, do you guys think it'll be a well-crafted project?
Absolutely. I think it looks like a very well-made and fun game. Graphically, okay, it's on the 3DS and it doesn't look striking, but I think it's going to be a very, very fun experience. I think the biggest problem is the artistic direction of the game, because it derives so much from what people are used and what people expect. I don't think for a second that this game is going to be bad. When Wind Waker was announced, there was an enormous backlash about the whole cell shading looks and everything. People really didn't like it in the beginning, and now it's a lot of people's favorite Zelda at this point.
There's been a lot of vitriol about it, and we've had kind of a day at least to stew on it now. And I can't see this game not being fun, to be honest. It might not be your traditional Metroid experience. Hopefully they're going to show off that it is more of a traditional Metroid experience in some ways. But I can see the game nevertheless just being fun. And it is good that it gives that wider look at the universe. And I'm interested to see what more they actually have. If you look at what Next Level have done in the past, such as the Punch-Out game, which was a lot of fun, it was Punch-Out and it was a great way to bring it back. And if you look at the Strikers games, they are so much fun. They really know how to make a fun game, did Next Level. So I can see this game being a lot of fun, and it may not be what people wanted, but I think when it actually comes out, the people that will play it will enjoy it.
I think the good thing in the long term for the Metroid brand is that it is a spin-off and it's an experiment. And it's good that Nintendo experiments, because it shows what people like and what people don't like. So if it's fun, or if people find components of the game that they really like, they know they can implement it maybe in later games. But in this case, I would consider it to be an experiment. And experiments are good, even if they aren't received well, because there's always something to learn for future installments.
Choice is always good. If you get more choice, then you can't really complain. You'd rather have this game out, or at least I would. I'm not sure many Metroid fans would, but you'd rather have this game out and be able to play it if you so wish, than not have it at all and just have a space missing there.
Exactly.
And that wraps up our discussion. Now, does Federation Force really deserve all this negative backlash before its release? Probably not. I am sure the project will be a fun time, but what do you guys think in the comments? Anyways, this has been M Productions.
My channel is Ragnarox, and I'm Ragnar, and thanks for having me.
Commonwealth Realm, my name is Conrad.
I'm Maka from Nintendo Box, and it's been awesome to be on here again. Thank you.
And we'll see you guys another time. Have a good one.